Like I said in a recent video, I figured I should show you guys that we do eat more than pizza around here. Although, funny enough, the first meal that I'm going to make is pizza, but it's a different pizza that I don't make as regularly as just, a beef and pepperoni one. So this is a chicken, bacon, and ranch sourdough pizza. I don't have to use a recipe for this, or any of these for that matter, because over time I've just learned, and we'll get into that as we get into the video. But this one is delicious. I just do a basic sourdough pizza dough for the dough. If I get to it the day before, the morning of, it always turns out, which is great. So I'm starting off with just chopping up some bacon. I think I did about 4 or 5 strips, and then I'm cooking that in my cast iron. You could also cook it in the oven if you wanted to, but I actually had the chicken baking in there, so that's why I didn't do them together. You totally could if you wanted to. I chop it up so that I don't have to do that afterwards, and then I just cook it like that. I like it a little bit crispy, but not too crispy because you're going to be throwing it in the oven anyway. So cook that up first. While that is cooking, the chicken is baking in the oven. I usually do it at about 350, and then I just watch it, and then I like to shred it in the mixer instead of using 2 forks. It is so much easier. You can use the paddle attachment, and I like it shredded. That way there's not like huge chunks of it on the pizza, though you could do it that way if that's your preference too. So once those 2 things are going, the next step would be to work on the pizza dough, getting that on your pizza pan. I always use parchment paper just to prevent sticking and oil dripping. You can oil your pizza pan, but I have one that has holes in it, so it just ends up making a giant mess. So I always just use parchment paper. And I actually had a friend of mine, an older woman that I know, I hesitate to call her an older woman because she's not old, but she's older than me. She actually said with sourdough, it is better to, well, with pizza, it's better to not use a rolling pin. I always used a rolling pin, but she said use your fingers and just lightly spread it out and then let it rest, and then spread it some more, let it rest. So I've been doing that technique lately, and I really like it. I've had issues with the dough sticking to my rolling pin, and then I'm getting frustrated having to add a bunch more flour, which I know that's probably, I don't know, that's just another technique, I guess, but I don't want to add a bunch of flour that is not fermented or not whole grain, because I'm trying to do primarily whole grain. So I like the other method with the fingers because you can avoid that. So it's really nice. So I'm going to get the dough spreading out on there, and then I'm going to work on the homemade ranch. So the ranch is the one thing that I do still look at a recipe for. I use the Farmhouse on Boone. I will link the recipe down below that I usually use. I should just get this memorized, but it's just something that's like, I don't make it regularly enough where, like every day or even every week I don't make it, so I just don't have it committed to memory. And it's lots of little things, like it's a teaspoon of this, a half teaspoon of this, so it's a little bit more specific. So I do use a recipe for that, but other than that, the rest of this has been committed to memory. So like I said, I'll link the ranch recipe below, but I just mix it all in a jar, use my immersion blender. Super easy and delicious. So we're mixing the chicken to get it shredded up. This is seriously the easiest way to do it. If you've never done it that way, you will not go back. I don't do anything else when I have to shred chicken. It is the best. So after I shred up some cheese, I usually use the white cheddar. There's an aged white cheddar from Aldi that is so delicious. And then I think I mixed some Parmesan with this one too, just because I had some in the fridge that needed to be used up. So I just mixed them together. But first I will spread some of the homemade ranch on the pizza dough. Then I will top with cheese. Then I'll put some of the chicken, which I forgot to mention that I did season the chicken. I did olive oil and then just salt and pepper. And then after the chicken, top with some of the bacon pieces that are barely crispy. And then drizzle again with more ranch, however much you think you want. We like quite a bit. So drizzle it up, and then I bake at 350 for anywhere between 17 and 21 minutes. It kind of just depends on your oven. This is the part that's tricky because I can't really give you an exact amount of time. You have to watch it, and then you want to check the middle of the pizza because you can get crispy outsides and then the inside could still be doughy. That doesn't happen to me. Actually, that never happens to me when I bake at 350 for at least 18 minutes. But I just know that ovens can be different, so I want to give that forewarning that you'll want to check it. The way that I usually check it is to take a spatula and kind of pick up one side of the pizza, stick it underneath, and just kind of peek at the middle and see if it all comes up in one piece, and then usually we're good to go. I'm sure you could probably check it with a fork too, or a toothpick in the middle. I don't know. I've never done that, but here it is. We enjoyed this. The next meal that is very easy to make and really doesn't require much recipe or planning activities is a slow cooker roast. So I believe this is a chuck roast, and I poured some broth in there. I salted it generously, and then whatever seasonings you like. I believe I did garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, salt and pepper, which I said. And then I might have done a little bit of oregano because I really like oregano leaves on a lot of different things. So I just throw it in lots of things that I make. And then I cook it on low I put 6 hours, but I think we usually end up eating it at about 5.5 or 5:45 or so. But you want it to be on low for a long amount of time because that's how you get that tender, juicy roast. And it takes a long time for it to all the I don't know, I think I looked it up once and it said like the cartilages and stuff to break down. And I've done it before where I haven't cooked it long enough and it was tough, and I thought it was because I cooked it too long, but it's actually the opposite. It has to go longer. So this one's really easy. If you don't have a slow cooker, I think you can use an Instant Pot too. I haven't actually done that. You could also cook it low and slow in the oven, but this really doesn't require very much hands-on time. And you can use a roast for so many things. You can serve it just like I'm going to with mashed potatoes and gravy. You can serve it, you can turn it into tacos. You can do roast beef sandwiches. Like there's just so many options with that. And I think that's one of the biggest things with cooking. So I became a homemaker and really did not know techniques of cooking. And I'm still a novice. I'm for sure not a chef by any means. I basically knew how to make boxed mac and cheese. I knew how to make spaghetti. I knew how to make, pasta, like just little things like that. But I did not know anything about cooking from scratch. And so I've learned a lot of it just by watching videos. I have some cookbooks, so I've read some things and just doing, like learning the process. So I'm by no means an expert, but nutrient-dense meals do not have to be that complicated. You've got your meat, your protein as the main source, and once you kind of learn how to cook some basic protein, you can mix and match various recipes. So for instance, like I said, the roast can be used in a variety of different types of meals. So learn how to cook a roast. It's really easy in the slow cooker. And then shred it up and use it differently every single week. That's a way to kind of challenge yourself to learn how, to think through, okay, I have a roast in the fridge. Last week we ate it with mashed potatoes and gravy. I don't really want to do that again this week, so maybe we'll do roast beef tacos. And then maybe the next week you want to try sourdough buns, and so you want to do shredded roast beef sandwiches, or you kind of want to make it like a barbecue roast beef. I think that's usually done with pork, pulled pork, but you could do it with roast beef, because if that's the skill that you are wanting to hone in on, then go for it. There really are no rules beyond the basic rules, if that makes sense. So once you learn them, you can get creative and explore a little bit more and get just create in your kitchen. I made this with mashed potatoes and gravy. Like I said, we love mashed potatoes and gravy. I make them every week, honestly, a couple times a week, because we love them. And how I make them is to chop them up, and then I simmer them in a bit of milk until they're soft, and then I mash them up, add some butter, sour cream, salt, pepper. Sometimes I'll add cheese or garlic. This time I didn't. And then for the gravy, I just do some butter. I make a little roux. Actually, I don't even always do that first. I just do butter, a little bit of butter, some broth, and then I add flour. I usually use einkorn flour from Azure Standard, and then I whisk it really quick before it gets clumpy. When it's nice and warm, I'll add the flour, and then you've got gravy. Let it thicken, turn it to low, let it thicken, and it's delicious. I also served these with some sourdough popovers, which I had not made before, and they turned out pretty good. I'll have to work on that recipe a little bit. It's not my recipe, but I will have to just work on getting better at it, is what I'm trying to say. So the next one is meatballs, and of course more mashed potatoes and gravy, which we didn't have these back to back, even though it looks that way in this video. But this is actually the same meatloaf recipe that I always do. I just turned it into meatballs just to mix it up a little bit. Meatloaf is something that is really simple. You wouldn't think of it as being simple to make, but it's so easy. It's actually so hands-off once you get it all mixed together. It's even easier than like pizza, or I don't know. I would say it's just as simple as throwing in, frozen chicken nuggets or something. It takes a little bit more effort than that, but not much. So I always just do salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, oregano leaves, Parmesan cheese, mix that all together. Oh, and 1 egg. Mix it all together, and then, like I said, I turned them into meatballs this time. So normally I would top with white cheddar cheese too, but I didn't do that this time since I did meatballs instead of meatloaf. And then I bake them at, normally I do the meatloaf at 350 for 45 minutes, but since these are meatballs, a little less because they're split up and you don't want them to get overdone. So somewhere in there, 40-ish minutes. And then I did the mashed potatoes and gravy the same way as I said before. So just a little bit of a different way to prepare some ground beef. This last one, I actually want to perfect the recipe a little bit more, but it's just kind of something that I throw together. It's perfect when we've just gotten back from a lake trip, or it's just like a crazy day, don't know what to make, or I don't know, anything like that. So this is just some sausage diced up and diced potatoes. So the sausage I get from Natural Grocers, it's actually in bratwurst form, so it's kind of like hot dogs. The one I got this time was beef, but I've gotten an apple gouda pork before. That's really delicious. So there's a bunch of different kinds. You can get spicy, just depending on what your family likes. But I just dice up the potatoes and I bake those at 350 for a little while first until they start to get soft. And then I slice up the sausage and I put that in my cast iron skillet. It's actually already pre-cooked, so I just like it to get a little crispier. And then I mix everything together, add a little salt and pepper. You could add any seasonings that you like. And then I top with cheese, usually white cheddar from Aldi, because that's our favorite. And then I just bake it for a little while, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And then we eat that. I really also like it with sauerkraut cooked on top, but nobody else in my family likes sauerkraut besides me, so I keep it off. But that would be more like a sausage and sauerkraut. That's a real dish that people make. This is kind of just throw things together and make it taste good and make it nutrient dense. So this one's really nothing special. All of these I feel like are really nothing special, but we get nutrient dense food and it's simple to make, and I don't have to do recipes for any of these. So I will type things up down below, things that I've said, just so that if you are somebody who likes a visual like that, you can have it. But I do want to encourage you that the more that you are cooking in your kitchen, these things will start to click and they will just come to you much more naturally. It has taken me a long time. I've been home now full-time for almost 4 years, and I'm just getting to this point now. So I'm excited to see what I will learn in the next 4 years, but it definitely takes time. So don't lose heart.